Welcome back to episode 3 of my Forever Home. Last episode, we beat the Fallen Wizard and got to the Fallen Altar for the incursions and decorated the base a bit more. This episode, I plan to do the following. Defeat the remaining 7 bosses. This means defeating the new Plains biome boss, and whilst there, I may as well finish the Adventurer's Journal and tasks that came with it. As a bonus goal, I'd like to also finish one of my 4 armor sets and maximize them out to tier 5. Not only will one set at max level help me to tackle the tier 5 incursions, but it will speed up the process to getting faster resources to upgrade the others to tier 5. During the process, we will be doing a ton of combat, and if it allows for it, I'd like to also start working towards upgrading my storage area to look like this. I've done a ton of thinking behind this layout, and to me it just seems efficient for what I need it for. So the colored boxes in funky shapes here, here, and here represent how I'm filtering my chests. Red is for battle, blue is for crafting, green is for landscaping, and yellow is for farming. Then the 4 red squares in the middle are alchemy tables. That way they can craft all my potions, as each table can automate 10 items. Followed by the pink items being workstations and other items which will utilize my chests, and this ensures everything is covered and everything can be reached from within these workstations. Now I did a bit of prep work here, and here is my calculations for chests and storage. It's done up on a draft Excel sheet, but as you can see, I have it listed by type being one of those main 4. Then a filter on what I will label my chests, and then how many chests I will need for that filter. I don't even know if I'll stick to this layout, but I do like the idea of it. So that is the goal for this episode, and I've recorded this intro before tackling it, so I don't even know if I will get time to do so. But I guess only this video will tell. So let's jump in. Starting off, I head over to the Elder to check out the new quest he has for me. He wants me to defeat the rune-bound chieftain in the Plains Caves and is offering the new hover boots. So think hoverboard, but in trinket form. I head on over to a Plains biome, chop some trees as I forgot to bring myself a ladder, and head down into the new Plains Caves. With the new area also comes some new journal entries. I have to break 3 runic boulders, the big ones, not the little boulders. I also have to find some runic stones and see what they can craft, equip a full runic armor set, and defeat the rune-bound chieftain boss to obtain a challenges banner that increases the probability of raids. Included is also a ton of loot to find too, mostly cosmetic, but a few new trinkets and weapons to find and test too. I also find some runic stones and see what they can craft. A boss summon, new dash boots, and the rune armor needs them too. Shortly after, I find the boss arena and an underground housing area. I quickly and swiftly eliminate the threats and began looting, almost making me feel like the bad guy here, but inside some of these dresses and chests are cosmetic outfits. I somehow obtain a full set and put it on, but it's not classified as runic armor as it is only cosmetic, so I'll still have to complete that challenge. As I was exploring, I stumble across another light path tile room, and as always at this point in the game, just step on the first tile and fly across to the last. No doubt this may change in the future and they'll have this path detect you flying, but for now I just take the easy method and get myself to the loot. I get an Essence of Prolonging, this is good for the new magic staves, and I get a bone offering for the boss, and then the second chest has a will-o-wisp, kind of like a loot detector. As I began exploring the surrounds to the boss arena, I found another set of housing, broke the runic boulder, and completed my challenge. But I also accidentally triggered a bear protecting its little cub. As I passed through the center again, I decided to take to the boss and try it out. Upon activating the boss fight, the walls went up and some portals appeared. The boss was summoning reinforcements in a wave-by-wave combat trial. I imagine this may eventually be tweaked to have more enemies on tougher difficulties and less on easier difficulties, but this is a fun fight nonetheless. They even thought about adding in teleporters on the outside so your teammates can join in if they want. Once the enemies got defeated, the boss decides enough is enough and jumps down to fight me himself. This fight starts off kinda easy, but the chieftain has a variety of moves and can actually deal some solid damage. I'm in endgame armor and he still dealt a fair chunk of my health. Granted, I was being reckless, but it was still hefty damage nonetheless. I then figured why not fight it a second time, and I got myself the rune-bound scepter. This staff shoots earth spikes across the floor, and then with my right mouse button I can detonate those spikes, causing some AoE damage. Kinda neat, but not my style. As I began exploring again, I stumbled across a granite caveling. Kind of cool, as the cavelings usually drop that cave's tier of ore, and it hadn't occurred to me that the runestones were the ore for the plains biome caves. I don't know why it didn't occur earlier, but it was a nice realization. As I was looting some treasure, my will-o-wisp guides me to some loot, and I get the other essence trinket, a cosmetic armor piece, and another boss summon. Just shortly after, my will-o-wisp guides me to another treasure room, and this time it's a dart trap dungeon. It is fairly easy, but can be swiftly punishing as the damage is done in percentages of your max HP. So it doesn't matter how much total HP you have, you'll still die in the same amount of hits. The first area is simple. Stand on the tiles between the traps, take your time, and don't rush it like I did. For the next part, if you're fast enough, you can just run straight through before the activation sensor sends the signal to start the traps. Same goes for the next one. Once that door opens, just make a run for it and you'll stay ahead of the first set of discs. The next is an alternating arrow and trap area. I usually just bolt across and take one hit, otherwise you can just zigzag through nicely. For this spot, just rush through. Sometimes you can get lucky and avoid everything, however I got hits. And then we are up against the spike room. If you do have a will-o-wisp, avoid going to where it shows as it is pointing out the dangerous pressure plates, but just follow the longer path to the safe spots. Then for the final room, you guessed it, just make another run for it and you'll stay ahead of the curve. Then just claim your loot. I snagged myself a sentient sword summon and a companion locket. Oddly enough, these two pair really well together. The sentient sword uses 2 minion slots for 1 minion, meaning if you can summon 5 total summons, you can only summon 2 for a total of 4 summon slots used, and you would miss out on the last one. However, the companion locket will give you summon damage for each slot that isn't used. So whilst you can't use all 5, you'll get compensated for not being able to. I decided to try it out on the boss, and to my surprise, it actually did pretty well and would no doubt do well against worm-like bosses too. With the boss defeated, it drops a Brute's Battle Axe, and that acts as a stronger katana. Just charge it up and dash attack. I hand in my quest to the Elder and get my fancy hover boots. They're kind of cool, and if you ask me, they're a ton of fun, and they also make traversing over lava gaps much nicer. Whilst that was a nice reward, I head on over to the tungsten workstation and make myself the wind boots. I then upgrade those to the ghost boots. These boots allow me to dash and sprint, making it like Zephyr boots and the Force of Wind trinket combined into one. I still had one challenge left, and that was to complete and equip a full set of runic armor. With that done, I had now completed all journal entries again and got myself a challenger banner. An item that increases raids, so probably an item I won't be using, however, it will come in handy later. So with all that out of the way, the grind begins, getting to a tier 5 armor set. I start my first tier 1 extraction tablet in the incursion portal. I head in, and the incursions currently have 2 variations, either hunt or extract. In the hunt, you kill enemies to progress until you hit 100%, or extraction, where you progress by mining the variations of ore from the cave until you hit 100%, then summon and defeat the boss. However, there is a neat little trick to them. The enemies only spawn as you progress. This means in the hunt incursions, the more you kill, the more you progress, but then the more enemies that spawn. However, in the extraction incursions, you progress by mining the biome specific ore. So as long as you don't do that, you're free to run around danger free to mine up upgrade shards and upgrade your armor and weapons, or alchemy shards to upgrade your potions to bigger and better potions. You're probably also looking at some gameplay footage of me doing exactly this, but if you combine it with a spelunker potion, you can quickly run around with some mining equipment and find all the ore you need before progressing further. Upon progressing, I get overwhelmed and died, leading me to think that I need the Banner of Defense flag and Banner of Summon Speed to fully utilize the quad placement of the buff flags. To do so, I need some Void Shards and headed over to the dungeon. I placed down a Banner of War for increased enemy spawns and got to farming some Void Shards. The Banner of War flag is actually kind of fun to use, as the enemies try to destroy the flag and you have to keep it alive. It almost feels like a tower defense game and could be its own unique incursion idea. With enough shards now, I crafted my banner flags and headed back to the incursion. I finished up the extraction, placed down all of my flags, and started the fight against tier 1 Sage and Grit. The fight starts off alright, but for whatever reason, maybe a lack of defense or skill, they just felt like they had so much extra damage on me and hit like a truck. defeating through my frozen heart all of my potions and everything I had. It just wasn't going my way. I thought I'd be able to take them on, but they showed me that they were much stronger and I needed to prepare more, and I did end up dying. I headed back, except this time I had some buff potions, some good food, and it was going much better. My damage output was higher, my defense rating was better, and I was doing much better. However, I still died with Sage and Grit left at 2.6% HP. It was possible, I just needed to do better. I went back a third time, except this time with the new summon weapon I got earlier, and my companion trinket, but the issue with this weapon is that it's not quite fast enough to deal consistent damage, and I quite often found it to be bouncing between the two dragons, or following behind one of them, and I once again died. I went back a fourth time, except this time with a pumpkin pie for extra damage and crit chance, and played a lot more defensively. Instead of getting damage done with the glaive, I just focused on dodging and avoiding them. I snagged the win, and obtained some gateway tablets and some primordial essence used to make some new stuff. I exit the incursion and close it down. You do lose any items you left in there, except for your banner stands and banners. They will automatically get returned to you. Whilst at it, I also crafted an upgrade station. I upgraded my weapons to tier 1 to bring its damage up to a tier 1 scaling, and then I upgraded my helmet to tier 1 to get some extra defense and 1 extra summon from the armor. Then I did my chest and legs and spent the rest of the gear getting a tier 3 helmet for heaps more defense, going from 54 total defense to 74 armor. I jump into another incursion, place my banner flags down, and begin my extraction for the deep swamp incursion. It's only tier 1 and an easier boss to Sage and Grit, so this one shouldn't be too difficult, especially with all my upgrades I just got. I do my trick of just avoiding the mycelium ore and just running around and mining all of the alchemy and upgrade shards, so I can then focus on the ore and then the boss, and not have to worry about needing more spelunker potions. Once the ore is done, I summon the boss. This boss, with my defense boosts and weapon upgrades, makes this fight super easy. I barely take any damage and the boss melts when it's not circling around me, and thanks to my glaive and my summon weapons, my attack is at such a high speed that the boss's health just drains away. It became such a trivial fight for what is usually a pretty tough one, and probably made me realize I could even take it to tier 2 or tier 3 with what I've got. The boss drops a full set of tier 1 gold armor, which would be amazing to give to my settlers. This time round, I upgraded my pickaxe so I can mine faster and saved the rest for later upgrades. I then also upgraded my alchemy station to the Fallen alchemy station, allowing me to craft superior health and mana potions and greater combat potions. Next incursion I tackle is a tier 2 deep cave incursion, where I have to hunt the enemies, but the reward for this one is a full set of tier 1 Spiderite armor. A set that can only be obtained from incursions or crafted from the spider incursion rewards. So obtaining a full set early is pretty neat. I get started but then leave and come back with a stink flask to increase enemy spawns and a banner of war to further increase the spawns in an attempt to speed up the process. This does wonders, but the downside is this incursion has a modifier where when an enemy dies, they drop a small vortex that explodes. This explosion can one-shot me and deals tons of damage, so just an extra threat I have to look out for. I then continue to bait them and lure them around the rock formation, avoiding the explosions until I have completed the challenge. The best part about these hunt incursions is that I get a lot of secondary items, such as bones and ectoplasm. I summon the boss and start the fight against a tier 2 Reaper. Playing as a summoner, the goal for me is to just not get hit and let my summons do the work, and that's exactly what I tried to do until I get greedy and go for some glaive damage when I get the chance. At about 50%, the fight becomes drastically harder. The Reaper enters his second phase and becomes hard to hit, with the windows to deal damage to it getting pretty small. That, combined with my summons that have to keep up, it takes significantly longer to dwindle it down. At just under 20% HP, it dashes through me, causing me to use my frozen heart and activate the lifeline, and now I'm probably 2 or 3 good hits away from dying. It comes dashing towards me in a kill or be killed situation, and I snag the win. If I didn't kill it then, it would have reaped me as it passed through me. The Reaper out of the way, we get ourselves some Spiderite armor, which is useful for summoners, and it's a direct upgrade, although at a lower tier, the defense doesn't outweigh my current set. However, I head back and upgrade it so that I can now use the Spiderite armor and have it compete defensively with my previous set. I also upgrade my chest piece and boots to tier 2, boosting my defense to 87. The armor set looks alright, but I think I prefer the brute looking Minotaur or Minotaur set. I jump into another tier 1 deep desert incursion as the reward is a full set of tier 1 tungsten tank armor, so it's automatically worth it for my settlers. And whilst in the room, I tried tinker with my trinkets to set up a hybrid summoner miner build so I can have my summons and mine quickly. This set quickly allows me to mine ores, but also has enough summons to keep me safe from enemies. This is one of the many reasons I enjoy Summoner. I don't have to stop what I'm doing to fight enemies, my summons always have my back. With everything mined, it's time for Sage and Grit rematch. Last time I died 3 or 4 times, this time should go much better. No speed ups or jump cuts for this fight goes so much better. Despite my lifeline being on cooldown, I was able to play much more aggressively and still not have to worry too much about dying. With Sage and Grit down, I get myself the full tier 1 tungsten armor set for my settlers. I then upgrade my armor to tier 4 and jump into what I considered one of the final 2 bosses, the Moonlight Dancer. I absolutely adore this boss, not for the majestic and stunning boss design, and not for the skulls that appear in the dark tiles on the floor, but the reason that it has its own unique armor set that changes during day and nighttime, but it's also the first boss to introduce an actual boss mechanic. Very few bosses have mechanics, but this boss has a few mechanics. It has a giant Beyblading moon that chases you and deals massive damage if it hits you, and the Moonlight Dancer can also summon 4 shards which need to be collected to minimize her moonlight attack, otherwise it deals enough damage to one-shot you, and then on top of all that, she sometimes goes transparent and cannot be hit. With all that though, I got my butt absolutely handed to me and I didn't even make it to 50% HP. I rushed back in, except this time I placed down my buff flags, thinking the extra buffs would help me get an extra 60% damage done, but that didn't work either and I got her down to 20% left this time. I head down to my wizard and go for the Aware enchantment for the extra summon distance so it can do extra damage whilst I keep my distance. I then head back and craft myself a full set of greater potions and track down my angler to get him to fetch some ice fish so that I can craft some minion potions. The more minions, the more damage. Then I finally head back over to the mage and spend about all of my money on enchants for trinkets and armor. I also craft myself a lemon tart for some armor penetration, and then the angler was taking too long and I was wanting revenge on the dancer, so I set off and fished up my own ice fish to then craft my minion potions. With everything I need, I buff up and head into the fight for a 3rd time. This fight goes absolutely amazing and I used like 1 or 2 potions. I don't even use my lifeline and just breeze through. The difference that buffs make from potions, banners, food and enchants is insane and shouldn't ever be overlooked. If I could give a tip to any new players, it's that don't sleep on potions, enchants or food buffs and acquire the buff flags when you can. As the dancer dies, it drops me a piece of dusk armor. This is the unique armor that's hybrid magic and summon and changes during day and night. I don't think I plan to use it, but maybe if I get enough extra pieces for settlers and myself, I can showcase it off another time. I also get 2 new tablets, a tier 4 crystal incursion with a full tier 1 arcanic armor set, and another tier 4 crystal incursion rewarding a full tier 3 gold armor set. That is a very nice reward. But I don't think I'm ready for tier 4 yet, and I open up a tier 2 snow extraction that rewards a full tier 1 frost armor set. I make the most out of my buffs and head in right away and begin mining everything out. I don't know if the devs are watching or listening, but incorporating an incursion upgrade system so that we can purchase unlocks like permanent flag buffs or Spelunker potion buffs would be neat, or even just an upgrade to brighten it up a bit so we aren't power dumping millions of torches each time. And I think they'd be a really cool idea. With everything mined, I summon the boss, and me being tiered up past tier 2, this boss was a breeze, and I get myself a full set of frost armor for my settlers. With the recent update, I also know that raiders have been buffed, and I haven't been raided in a while. This is a worry as I'm probably not ready for the onslaught and I'm worried my settlers aren't powered up enough. So I enter the crystal incursion that awards me a full set of tier 3 gold armor. The crystal incursion is an entire crystal biome. There are crystals of all sorts, so if you ever had a hard time finding them, now's your chance to farm heaps. Not to mention, the crystal armor set and weapons can be some of the very best in the game. During the hunt version, I have to kill the golems and armadillos. These armadillos hit harder than Whitney's mill tank and don't ever stop with the rollout. So I tried to hollow myself into a wall, but these armadillos found their way in and absolutely steamrolled me. I returned and died again to the armadillos. I returned for a third time and hide myself into a corner and hope my summons provide adequate coverage and my glaive does enough knockback that nothing can enter. However, I died again. 4th time's the charm and I complete the hunt. I won't spoil too much on a losing fight, but I did die at just 50% HP dealt. I return, place down my flags, buff up, and create an arena. I box it in so that the minions it spawns can't get me, and create some walls to act as barricades for the crystals that fly out of the dragon. However, I swiftly learn that the walls block nothing and are more of a hindrance to me than it is to the dragon, and I die again. I return again, knowing more about the fight and mechanics, and snag the win. So from this point on, I mainly just focus on getting upgrades and alchemy shards and upgrading my gear. I won't go through each incursion I complete as it's mainly just rinse and repeat, but I do craft myself a ruby dragon weapon and upgrade it to tier 5 and spend my remaining money on getting a better enchant for it. I also craft a potion bag as it holds twice the storage of a potion pouch, and then I spawn into a slime incursion as the reward is 2 sun arenas, and that is something that I'm keen to try out. I also haven't defeated the slime boss, so that also helps achieve my goal of defeating all the bosses. With the wave rush down, I spawn the boss and start the mother slime fight. This fight is a ton of fun and I enjoy the mechanic forcing you to move around. However, I'm not one for bosses that spawn minions, as it just feels like artificial difficulty that takes you away from the actual boss. The slime boss was an easy win and I snagged myself the 2 sun arena tablets. I then decide whilst I had some food buffs to try my luck against the boss. I place down my flags and take some more potions and try the boss. This boss is tough for a few reasons. 1, he blends in so much to the background, as the background is just a tad bit bright, and 2, it feels like fighting a powered up gym buffed Rayman, with both his arms jet fueled flying about, trying to knock you out, and then he summons fires and can sometimes use a big nuke attack. But the best strat I found, and at least for summoners, is to take your time, don't move too quickly, or the arms will pick up speed and just never stop moving. Even though it was a tier 3 incursion, I was still shocked to have beat it first try. I also obtained the Dawn armor, which is a melee and range hybrid armor similar to the Dusk set, and I also went back and defeated another for a second piece of armor. Following those, I jump into a spider incursion, quite possibly one of the coolest. It has a giant throne room, its own ore, and cocoons of enemies, and looks like the most royal place in all of Necesse. And the boss has the best design in the game, or at least in my opinion it does, and we will see that shortly. So I run around and just clean up the Spiderite ore until I'm ready to fight the boss and I summon it in. The Spider Empress arrives, and holy heck does she look good. She only has a few attacks and dashes, but every cycle she enrages and those attacks get crazy empowered. So I do my best to avoid the lines that she cuts you with and stay out of the toxic goop as that does tons of damage. With the fight down, she drops an entire tier 3 set of Nightsteel. Nightsteel is from the final incursion I haven't done yet, the Graveyard incursion. So to get it early is kind of a big deal, and also obtained a cosmetic Empress mask. Oh, and before I leave, and for those wondering, you can indeed steal the Empress's throne. You just can't sit in it yet, but I assume that's coming in potentially a future update. I craft a full set of crystal armor, and upgraded all the way to tier 5 to begin my endgame summoner build. For those who want to see me break it down, I have a ruby dragon build video on the channel that covers all of the details. If I remember, I'll also link it in the description below. So for the build, it requires resilience to obtain extra summons as part of the crystal set. So I need a bunch of trinkets I don't have. I set to the desert to obtain the clockwork heart, as that converts half of my HP into resilience. I start enchanting all my gear with the tough enchants for 10 extra resilience, as my set armor gives me 1 extra summon for every 100 resilience I have. I get most of them enchanted and try my luck at a tier 4 moon incursion. However, as I was starting to set up, I get notified I was being approached by raiders. I quickly head home and to the north and start brightening the water up, but the raiders are summoned and spawned in the dark. This went well as my crystal dragons do insano damage, and I just hid behind the rocks while they cleaned up. I just want to state too that for whatever reason, one of them landed a shot on me that bypassed my resilience and depleted my entire HP, forcing me to use my Frozen Heart's lifeline in just a single hit. They don't mess around, and if that had reached my settlement, they would be done for. But holy heck, did they drop some loot. We got tier 5 weapons and armor. No wonder they hit me so hard. I went back to my tier 4 moon incursion and won myself the Raven's Nest. This is quite possibly one of the hardest hitting bows in the game, if not the hardest hitting. It pierces, hits like a truck, and can synergize well with some other trinkets. I then took on another tier 4 crystal incursion to get myself 2 graveyard incursion tablets. And then finally, to top off my last boss of the game and tick it off the list, I open up a tier 5 graveyard biome. This boss for this arena is crazy unique as it's not just one enemy, but an entire swarm. The graveyard itself is a really unique biome too. There is unique trees and wood, unique walls, floors, furniture, and all sorts. And then instead of mining ores, we mine these rock formations that have ores inside them. But the best part is that mining the tombstones literally everywhere drop money and potions, making it extremely effective for money farming and potion gathering. Then to top it off, the enemies can also drop some unique weaponry that uses your life points to inflict big damage. So with me finished gathering the ores, it's time to fight the final boss, the Night Swarm. As you can see, it's an entire swarm of enemies. Whilst they do share a combined boss health bar, they each have their own hit points, and the boss doesn't end until every bat has been defeated. This is a boss I haven't fought enough of in the game, but what seems like random movement is actually a set rotation of pathing of the bats. So the first attack is always a group dash, then the second, they split formation around the player, and then I haven't taken the time to learn all of them, but then they repeat the rotation from one to the end. And to top it all off, my incursion has the explosion modifier, where when an enemy dies, they drop an explosion. This is both good and bad in the sense that if one dies, it hits the others. But bad because the sheer number of them, as they start to die in bulk, their explosions will be in my way and just another obstacle for me to keep away from. But just like that, I defeat the bats, obtain my loot, but instantly died due to the explosion the very last bat dropped. A win's a win, and I'm just glad I'm not playing on hardcore mode, because what a way that would be to go out. Truthfully, if I died in hardcore mode like that, I'd probably just uninstall the game. But that is now every single boss defeated in Necesse. So, as I mentioned earlier, the graveyard is an absolute pool of loot. I ran around the entire map mining every gravestone for loot. It did take a bit of time, but I was certain that it would pay out. I didn't think it would pay out as well as it did, but wow. I walked away with hundreds of upgrade and alchemy shards, potions of all sorts, and to top it off, I had spent every dime I had on enchants, so I came in here with 0 gold and walked away with about 40,000 gold. All this from one incursion. For those who are struggling to defeat this boss, once you complete the mission, don't summon the boss. Just clear out the loot and hope your newfound loot can get you some upgrades. With some of my upgrade shards, I upgraded my pickaxe to tier 5 so I could have the very best pickaxe in the game. And I then used my money to upgrade all my armor pieces with tough to get myself some more resilience, as every 100 got me another summon. I then craft my final trinket needed for this set, the Manica, which gives me 50% resilience gain and 50 resilience, taking me to 405 resilience and giving me 4 extra summons, allowing me to summon 9 summons or 10 summons with a minion potion, meaning I can have up to 5 ruby dragons at a time, which is just crazy strong damage and protection. So with all that out of the way, I think that wraps up this month's episode. Quite a grind and a ton of combat, but very little town building. I think next episode, I'll start with recreating my storage room and placing down the challenger banner so that I can farm some quick tier 5 armor for my settlers. If you made it this far, consider dropping a like or subscribing if you haven't already, and leave your favorite emoji down in the comments below, just for engagement. I hope you all have a happy time zone, and if you're not sure what that means good morning, good afternoon, or good night, wherever you may be around the world, and I hope to see you next time.